Attention Christmas shopping procrastinators, head on over to deaditesundeck.com for the most unique horror and custom t-shirts, mouse pads, blended teas, candles, tote bags, and much more. And starting now until December 14th, save 10% off of your entire order with the promo code Merry Christmas.
Howdy, gang, and welcome to the first of the holiday watch-alongs that I wanted to do for you guys. Tonight will be 1974's Black Christmas, directed by Bob Clark. It's the only Black Christmas, in my opinion. The 2006 version kind of grew on me, but still, I like the fact that Bob Clark chose to keep the Billy character kind of hidden, as far as you didn't really figure out who he was, really why he was doing what he was doing. And the 2006 version kind of expanded on the backstory for Billy. And in some cases, that's okay, but in other cases, I think it can be detrimental to a movie, especially a horror movie. So I prefer Bob Clark's original. I think it's a lot creepier, with the phone calls that start out as obscene phone calls and move into very bizarre, threatening territory. I had never watched a movie that had phone calls used in quite that way. Of course, after Black Christmas, with things like When a Stranger Calls, which all of these movies tended to expand off of the urban legend, the babysitter and the man upstairs. In this case, this is not babysitters, this is sorority girls who are being menaced by someone, a stalker, who has invaded their sorority house and has taken up residence in their attic. And he periodically comes down to kill some of the sorority girls off. Now, most of the sorority girls leave to go for Christmas vacation with their families, but we have a few girls that are staying behind, and they are the ones that get threatened by Billy. Russell, you say, evening, Dana. I didn't mind the remake. Well, like I said, the remake grew on me, Russell, but I'm still not the biggest fan of it. When I first saw it, I hated it. I don't hate it, but it's just kind of, it's there. It's okay. I don't hate it anymore, but I much prefer the original. Now, for those of you that are watching this for the first time around, keep in mind sometimes I give spoilers. So I don't want to ruin this movie for anybody. So that's why I give you a warning. If you want to stick around and this is your first time viewing this movie, don't say I didn't tell you that I might give spoilers. Now, I had invited a couple of people I don't know if they're going to be able to come on here. If somebody comes on here, or is in here now that would be interested in coming in here live on the watch along with me, I would be glad to have you. The only caveat is that you got to behave when you're on here. You can't be doing nefarious things that you shouldn't be doing, and I think everybody knows that without me explaining that to you. Okay. Or getting on here for the sole purpose of doing and saying things that you shouldn't be doing, whether it's to other people or it's just in general. So, anyways, I just wanted to put that out there before I get started with this. Today is the official last day to get your orders in with the 10% discount on deaditesondeck.com, and also the last day to get orders in that I can fulfill before Christmas. Okay. You can put orders in anytime, but this is the last day that I can guarantee you that I will get it to you by Christmas. Okay. After that, all bets are off, but you can still place orders. But also after today, you will not get the 10% off. I will be offering, 10% off or maybe 20% off promotions in the future. But I've offered a couple of these for the Christmas holiday season, and nobody really took me up on those. So I'll wait a while and then I'll do a promotion again to hopefully help you save money. Maybe we'll do it around Valentine's Day or something like that. Okay. In case you're wanting to get your sweetie something either horror related, or as I always say, I do custom work as well, where I can put parents, grandparents, kids, grandkids, pets, whatever, on t-shirts and hats and tote bags. I can even do candles. If you've got a certain scent of candle you want, and you want your kids put on this candle or your dog put on the candle, or oh, that's okay, Chris. You say, hey, Dana, sorry I can't join you tonight. I'll be here in chat for the next hour listening, though. Sorry, it's wrestling night with Saturday night's main event today. Okay, that's cool, Chris. You got to watch that wrestling, don't you? Chris is always, he's my go-to person, but he is a wrestling fan, so I fully understand that. I unfortunately don't keep up with wrestling. I watch wrestling from time to time. Yeah, Chris says he loves that wrestling. But I don't keep up with everything. And so sometimes there's special things going on with wrestling that I just not aware of. I don't know if I'd call it a sickness, Chris. It's just, it's what you're into. I mean, Chris is also into horror films as well, but, sometimes it comes down to you got to make choices. Is it horror or is it wrestling? And me not being a huge wrestling fan, it makes it a little easier on me. Unfortunately, for people that like horror and wrestling, almost equally, it's a little bit harder. You're into too much stuff. Well, sometimes I think I'm into too much stuff too. Russell says, here's a good phone horror film, The Call, with Tobin Bell and Lynn Shay. I'm trying to remember if I've seen that one or not. That sounds very familiar, Russell, but I can't recall. I also wanted to remind everybody, since this is a live stream, watch alongs count as live streams. I'm still doing the thing where if you give a $5 super chat or more, you can throw your hat in the ring to pick an upcoming watch along when I do watch alongs again. So I just wanted everybody to keep that in mind. Hopefully the next week I will be able to do some more Christmas related programming. So be on the lookout for that. Tomorrow's watch along, also starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, will be for Don't Open Till Christmas, starring and at least partially directed by Edmund Purdom. Yes, that Edmund Purdom of Pieces fame. So we'll go ahead and get started with Black Christmas. Y'all may just be stuck with me tonight, unfortunately, but I'll do my best to entertain you. But I am using my Blu-ray. This is the Season's Grievings. This was like a Canadian exclusive. And mine is signed by Art Hindle, who was actually in the film. I met Art Hindle at a convention a few years back. He was a very nice man, had a very nice discussion with him about not only Black Christmas, but just how different things are in Canada, where he is, as opposed to the United States. But yes, he did sign this for me. And let me tell you a little story about how I obtained this. At the time, I think it's a little bit easier to get this version now. But when this first came out, it was like you could only get it from Canada. And I went to Amazon, the Canadian Amazon, and tried to get it. And they said for some reason they couldn't ship it to me. And I forgot now where I ended up getting it from. Maybe it was Diabolic. It's possible. Steve probably just said, why don't you get it from Diabolic? And that's probably what I did. Chris, you say off topic, but I have a question. The first Back to the Future film starts on October 25th, 1985, yet there's no Halloween decorations present anywhere in the film. Why do you think that is? I am not sure, Chris. I mean, do you know the answer, or was you trying to see if I knew it? Oh, yes, Russell, I agree with you. The fan film, It's Me, Billy, is good. It's a very, very good fan film or short film, whatever you want to call it. But Chris, if you know the answer to that about Back to the Future, I've never even thought about that. But that's a question that many of us, I guess, if we paid attention, would have. You don't? You're just curious? I'm going to think on that. I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with an answer before next time. But I want to let everybody know that's going to be watching along with me tonight as we navigate through Black Christmas. I am queued up about 11 seconds in on this Season's Greetings Blu-ray to the film funding in association with Vision 4 Presents. And I'll give everybody a couple of minutes before we get started. And then we'll go ahead and get this party started. Now, I did imbibe in a little Fireball whiskey earlier, and it's wearing off now. I was a little fuzzy headed earlier. I probably shouldn't have drank 2 shooter glasses of it. And I had planned to drink at least 1 during this, but I may not. I may stick with the caffeine just to be on the safe side. But I do have my Santa hat on, and I'm feeling very festive right now and raring to go for this movie. I've been looking forward. I did a watch along for this one a while back, but I was hoping that I would have some people on here with me. And no offense to Chris, because he has a very valid reason for not being on here tonight. But I can go it alone, as long as a few people will hang out with me tonight. In the chat or whatever. If you come in late to the game and need a timestamp, I'll be glad to provide that for you. If you come in later and and you're watching this on the replay and you say, oh yeah, she said if I came in later I could join her live on the stream, and you can. Like I said, the only caveat is you got to behave yourself, right? Can't be taking clothes off, can't be saying nasty things, like overly nasty things. And, you can't be harassing anybody or harassing me or anything like that. So, as long as you cannot do any of those things, you are welcome to come on here and hang out with me um, for the live stream. You love to all a good night. I love to all a good night as well, Russell. I actually talked about that last night on Terror Time Tea. That was one of the movies that I discussed. So um, if you haven't seen my Terror Time Tea pre-recorded from last night, Russell, you might want to check it out. I talk about To All a Good Night and Silent Night, Bloody Night. So, gang, I guess we'll go ahead and get started here. Hopefully, we'll have a few more people join us as we get into this. I'm going to go ahead and do the countdown. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Press play. All right. And we're off and running. And I believe this is still on Shudder. If you've got Shudder, I believe you can watch it on YouTube as well. It's possible it might be on Tubi as well. So, and this is starring Miss Olivia Hussey, Keir DeLay. I think Keir DeLay was probably the oldest of the young people. Margot Kidder, God rest her soul. Marion Waldman. Doug McGrath is on here. Art Hindle, Lynn Griffin, and Mr. John Saxon, God rest his soul as well. Music by Carl Zitcher, Carl Zitcher and Paul Jaja, forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, were two of the big music names, especially for horror movies. I think they did other stuff too, but especially for Canadian horror movies during this time period. And produced and directed by Mr. Bob Clark, God rest his soul as well. So we're seeing Olivia Hussey come in to the sorority house here. And I will say, this is one of my all-time favorite Christmas horror films. Oh, that's awesome, Chris. I never got to meet Margot Kidder, and I never got to meet John Saxon either. But you say you met both of them. They were wonderful people. They're surely missed to this day. Yes, they most certainly are. But people may have heard me say this story before. The first time I watched Black Christmas, I watched it under the title Silent Night, Evil Night. And I don't think the title had anything to do with it, but I hated this movie the first time I saw it. For whatever reason, I just didn't get it. And then I waited a while and I watched it again under the title Black Christmas, and I absolutely loved it. And I think probably the big reason why I enjoyed it and was able to get my head wrapped around everything and get creeped out and all that was that I was watching it in my parents' living room. No one else was awake. It was dark in there. And mom and dad's kitchen phone, or their phone, was in the kitchen, which their living room was right here. The kitchen was right here. I'm telling you, if that phone had rang in the middle of this, I probably would have jumped out of my skin. That is how much the eeriness and stuff of the phone calls and how bizarre they became and how much more threatening they became as the movie went on, how much of an effect that had on me. Russell, you say you're watching on YouTube Black Christmas 1974 Blu-ray 1080p movie. Yes. I think I was watching it that way the other day. Chris, you say Black Christmas is a top favorite Christmas horror film for me. Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Christmas Evil slightly beat it out, though, for me. And I could see that. I could see that for a lot of people, but I love Silent Night, Deadly Night as well. But Black Christmas, there's just something about, as the years go on, this becomes a more and more powerful horror film to me. And I know some people make fun of the tagline that was on the posters and the probably the VHS cover and stuff like that was, if this one doesn't make your skin crawl, if this film doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. And I kind of played around with that tagline and said, if this watch along doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. Because I just think that is, to me, that's ingenious. I mean, it's been used for other films in a, slightly different formats and stuff. It's like a slightly different wording, I guess. But nowhere for me has it been more effective than with this movie. Don't Open Till Christmas, Chris. My feelings on it. I like Don't Open Till Christmas. A lot of people feel like Don't Open Till Christmas is a jumbled mess because of the problems that they had on that. It had no less than 4 directors, according to Joe Bob, and I trust Joe Bob and what he says. Edmund Purdom either got fired or walked off the set, and he was, a big part of, big actor in the movie. So whoever had to take up directing reins after that was in a bind. And I can see places where it's a little weak, and it's probably weak because of that. But it has good kills in it. I like the setup for the killer. And I actually like the fact that they don't keep the killer hidden until the end. You find out who the killer is before the movie gets towards the end. That's right. Russell's quoting some of the phone calls from the movie. Yes, Russell. John Saxon is great in Enter the Dragon. Steve's a huge fan of Enter the Dragon, mainly because of Bruce Lee. Steve's always been a big fan of Bruce Lee. So we're seeing here, or if you've got your sound on, you are hearing the first obscene phone call of the movie. And evidently the girls have been receiving these calls already. And there's Andrea Martin there, Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, Lynn Griffin there beside Andrea Martin. And we saw, hopefully you saw Art Hindle playing Lynn Griffin, the character of Claire, playing her boyfriend Chris in this. So it is said that, one, the girls were not hearing this really obscene stuff. They were hearing, according to Olivia Hussey, they were hearing like, I'm going to get you or whatever. They were not hearing this really vulgar, obscene stuff that we're seeing and hearing if you're, listening to the audio for this. I unfortunately can't because YouTube would get me for that. But some of the most vulgar stuff and the most hardcore stuff was actually voiced by Bob Clark himself. So Margot Kidder Barb calls the the caller a creep, an effing creep to be exact. And before he hangs up, he says, "I'm going to kill you." And I always thought when he says, "I'm going to kill you," and then hangs up, it always sounded like Keir Delay, the character of Peter, who is Olivia Hussey, Jess's boyfriend in this. Um, but they said that Keir Delay did not do any of the voices on the phone. So, yes, Burley, this is the Black Christmas with Margot Kidder. So we can see that Barb has, kind of upset Claire. And we're seeing the introduction of the house mother, who they affectionately call Mrs. Mack. Her name is Ms. McHenry. And she is the alcoholic house mother who has booze hidden all over the sorority house. Claude's a big cat. You know what I think is funny? In the background shots, you see at least one other cat. But when Claude ends up in the attic for the duration of the movie, you don't see any other cats. So I'm like, where did the cats go? The house mother is very funny, Mrs. Mike. For me, it's a very endearing character. I mean, she curses and she drinks and all that stuff, but she's still an endearing character. So Claire is packing because she is planning on going home. Her father's planning on picking her up the next day for the Christmas holiday, and she's thinking it's Claude the cat that's making the noise coming from her closet. And so she's slowly, oh, excuse me, approaching the closet. And you can see the point of view of the killer who's behind plastic in the closet. I guess you would refer to that as like a dry cleaner bag or something like that. And so Claire's being attacked, and this is interspersed with Miss Mike getting, I guess that's a house dress or nightgown or whatever from the girls. And they're like, "Come on, Mrs. Mike, put it on." That is an ugly nightgown. I'm sorry. It just is. So now we see the killer coming out of Claire's room, and he's headed evidently up to the attic with Claire's body. And Lynn Griffin actually said that she sat in that rocking chair up in the attic, which we're going to see here shortly, with that plastic bag over her head, and they poked a hole in it so she could breathe, but literally she was sitting there like that. So we're seeing here that Mrs. Mike really does have booze hidden everywhere. Now, I cannot say I've ever seen anybody have a book with a hole cut into the pages so they could put booze in there. Or, nor have I seen, I don't know if this is like a Canadian thing or what, but on Prom Night, which is also a Canadian made movie, Slick has a what looks like a history book, and he opens it up, and there's a bunch of joints in there. So maybe that's a Canadian thing. I don't know. Chris, she said, my friend recently met Lynn Griffin at a convention and she did all her photos with a bag over her head. That is awesome. I wish I could meet Lynn Griffin. I would really like to meet her. She seems like a fun lady. I thought I was her friend on Facebook, and somebody I guess hacked her account, and I don't know if Lynn Griffin decided to get off there, but I had heard that Lynn was very interactive. But I may have heard that from Chris, interactive with her fans and stuff. And that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to get in touch with her to maybe try to get her on the channel or something like that for a short interview or something. And right about that time, I think somebody hacked her account. Yeah, we're going to be coming up on the fellatio scene, which I find extremely hilarious. Maybe I'm immature, but I find it funny. I have not, Chris. I haven't seen the teaser for the Return of the Living Dead reboot. Have you? I mean, does it look bad? So we're seeing more antics from Mrs. Mike here. And then once again, she's looking for booze. And she's got it in the toilet tank. Yes, you are correct, Russell. The desktop actor, that is Doug McGrath, was in the Porky's films as a teacher. He was like, I guess, an assistant gym teacher. Chris, you say it's nothing much to go by. Just play Silent Night while Tarman is dragging a Christmas tree. So they're going to have a Christmas theme to it, I guess. So there is Claire. This is where she spends the rest of her time in this movie. Russell, I'm not a fan of remakes or reboots for the most part. There have been some that are, okay. Um, but you said you like the remake of Black Christmas, so I guess some of them you like. And there is Claire's father, Mr. Harrison, who just got a snowball to the face from these kids. And Claire was supposed to meet him here, and she's not there, of course. Chris, you say there are several remakes that are better than the originals, in my opinion. And, you know, I respect anybody's opinion on that. I don't feel that way about the majority of them that are out there. Um, they just aren't effective to me, and whatever for whatever reason they're not. But I respect everybody's opinion to like or not like them. I I agree with you on the thing, the fly. I agree with you on every one of those. Now, here's the thing with me: the thing, the fly, the blob, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers were all older films. And nowadays, they'll take a brand new film, want to turn around and reboot it. And I'm like, no, you know. And with the thing, and the fly, and the blob, and even Invasion of the Body Snatchers, what they did was they improved on them because enough time had passed. But there are other things that are just such, in my opinion, they're such classic films that they just don't need to be remade. To me, Halloween wouldn't need to be remade. Friday the 13th, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, all of those movies like that, Psycho, they were perfect in and of themselves, and I just didn't think that they needed to be remade. I never actually sat down and watched the Maniac remake, Russell, so I can't really comment on that one. I think one of the things that I didn't appreciate with Black Christmas the first time around was this raw humor. And with one of Bob Clark's other films, Porky's, I didn't get it at first either. That had always been a favorite of my dad's, and I just didn't get it. And then years and years later, I watched it by myself. I didn't sit down and watch it with my dad, but I was like, um, this is pretty funny, you know. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things, even though I haven't seen it, I just couldn't imagine Elijah Wood playing that character. And maybe because it's so many years of watching Joe Spinell play Frank Zito in the original Maniac. And Joe Spinell could pull off sleazy and greasy and slimy like nobody's business, and I just couldn't see Elijah Wood in that type of role. Well, holy cow, Uncle Bill's in here. Hey, Uncle Bill. He says I've watched this movie like 10 times already this year. It just works on so many levels. I think I'm a little bit behind you, Uncle Bill. I don't think I have watched it uh, 10 times already, but probably 4 or 5 already. Um, I don't think I've seen Cooties either, Russell. There's a lot of movies that I need to watch that for whatever reason I haven't gotten around to watching them. Okay. Well, it looks like Santa Claus dropped off the gifts for my pet, so I'm probably going to have to go. I'll just leave the string for a second and um, make a dash to go get the gifts for the pets that Santa has left. Um, Uncle Bill, you said I put it on repeat and just watch it when I'm working. I'm sadly starting to warm up to the remake too. Well, I warmed up to it in the last few years, Uncle Bill, the 2006 one. Yeah, not the 2019 one. I never want to see that. We were talking about that fan film. It's Me, Billy. Have you seen that, Uncle Bill? Because that's a pretty good little short film. Dropping stuff on the floor here. You never seen it? You should try to find it. It might be on YouTube or something, Uncle Bill. Yes, Russell, the Christmas episode and all through the house on Tales from the Crypt, it definitely good killer Santa. Larry Drake was fantastic in that. I know Uncle Bill's a big fan of Larry Drake, or at least Larry Drake and Dr. Giggles. But gang, I'm going to step away for just a second. I hope nobody goes away, but I'm just going to take myself out of the stream a little bit, go get that stuff in, make a mad dash to the restroom and get me some more caffeine. I'll be right back. Okay, gang. Sorry. Um, yes, Russell. Margot Kidder did unfortunately have a breakdown a few years ago, and she has since passed away, sadly. Um, but you are correct on that. So I come back to Peter, who's having his piano recital. Nah, actually, I went and got these are festive. A chocolate, these are white chocolate covered pretzels, flips. I don't know if y'all have had any of these. Um, they have regular, milk chocolate, and they have white chocolate ones. Nah, so I'm just having a little snack. So we're finding out here that there's a little girl or a high school girl who's missing, and this is her mother. Um, talking to John Saxon here. Oh, those are good too, Russell. But I prefer cheese with mine. Something else that I like is pretzels with um those soft pretzels with cinnamon and sugar on 'em. I think Art Handel still has that coat. That was his coat, I heard in an interview he did. Peanut butter, yeah. I don't know if I've had peanut butter with them, but it doesn't sound bad. Yes, Chris, there's still an Auntie Anne's in the mall here in Louisville. And they're the ones that have all different types of pretzels. And they have one of my other favorites. They have ices. I love ices. Now here's where our go getter is talking about. Not only was she looking in an adult magazine, but now she's telling the story about the turtles that could have sex for 3 days. You'd love to have one. Well, maybe we can all go next time you and Candace come to Louisville. We can go to. I'm pretty sure St. Matthew's Mall has an Auntie Anne's. I'm not gonna take myself out of stride. I'm just gonna see if Zoe wants in here. Come on, Zoe. Girl, let me drag you off. Hmm? Drag you off, girl. Here. Here you go. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, there's no doubt that she was doing a lot of drinking, Uncle Bill. I think she even admitted that there were a lot of substances that she probably was imbibing in during the making of this movie. Russell, you say we didn't have malls when I was a kid, just plazas. I've always known about malls. There's always been malls. Um, with me growing up, and there's malls now that I've moved to Louisville. So now we're seeing Peter taking out all his anger on it on the piano there. So now there's a search party. They're not only looking for Claire, but they're also looking for the high school girl who disappeared. Uncle Bill, you said we only had the Huntington Mall in West Virginia for years. It was killer back in the day. Oh, the malls. Growing up, the malls for me was a place to be. Um, even if you didn't have any money, it was the place to go and hang out. Chris, you say Huntington Mall is where I grew up going to a lot. KB Toy Store, Auntie Anne's, Babbage's, and Sam Goody's were my usual stop. Hey, Candace. We got a whole crew in here now. And we see Mrs. Mike is still imbibing in the alcohol. And I think they put catnip on that plastic bag, and that's why Claude the cat is licking the bag. Uncle Bill, you say Huntington also has the closest Toys R Us forever, which I used to cream my jeans over. LOL. I think it's where I got my first Nintendo. I don't know where mom and dad got me and my brother's first Nintendo. I'm sure it wasn't Toys R Us, but I can't recall where they got it. Yeah, the original NES. Oh, Candace is out with the boys at the Winter Festival. Cool. Like I say, if anybody can and wants to join me on here, just let me know and I'll put that link in the chat. Because technically, I mean, we're 40 minutes in, but that's still early in this film because Mrs. Mike is making her way up to the attic, and we see that Billy is up there as well. Chris, you say, I love going to Toys R Us in Huntington in the 90s. They would have a couple of different aisles of video games. It was just pics of the games, and you had to take a paper to the front for them to get the games out for you to buy. That makes sense, as expensive as the games always were. And Mrs. Mike is taken out. And I think the guy playing the taxi driver here, I think this guy was maybe one of the producers on the movie. Oh my gosh, yeah. Super Nintendo games in the 90s, yeah, I remember that. That's right, Russell. Al's mother is now hooked on booze. So Billy's having a fit now. So Jess is going to have to leave because Peter's supposed to come over because we've been following along. She told Peter in a few scenes earlier that she was pregnant, but that she didn't want to have the baby. And he's supposedly coming over to the sorority house to convince her to have the baby. You can't stand Olivia Hussey in this, Uncle Bill? Really? Do you think she's a tight ass, maybe? You say, I think Waldman might be the best overall actress in this film. Kidder is great. I can't stand Olivia Hussey. So, unfortunately, the high school girl, Janice, is going to be found. We don't see her, but we can assume it's not good. Oh, well, have a good time, Chris. Thanks for stopping in for a little bit. And I always have loved that cut there where Janice's mother is starting to scream and cry, and it cuts to the phone ring. It is indeed a Canadian classic, Russell. So here's another one of the disturbing phone calls here as soon as Jess gets back to the sorority house. So she's trying to find Mrs. Mike. So I always thought this shot too was a great shot of you're not you knew that Peter was supposed to come over, but all you're seeing is feet and legs, part of the legs coming down the steps behind Jess. Because the last time we saw Peter, he was obviously sitting outside the sorority house waiting for Jess to come. But I'm wondering, I don't think they ever explain how did he get in the sorority house? Because I would think that it was locked. But maybe they unlocked their houses up back then. Oh, that's valid, Uncle Bill. You say, I think her performance in this film is one note. She's just kind of annoyed acting throughout it, and she bitches and then panics about everything. Very valid points, Uncle Bill. Yeah, the YouTube version of this, Russell, does look pretty good. So now Peter drops a bombshell on Jess and saying he's going to leave the music conservatory and then they're going to get married. It's like, dude, when did you start making all the decisions here? Russell, you say you don't like today's wrestling. I like some of it, not all of it. So this is the uh, other half of the fellatio scene, I should say. I had stepped away when the first part happened. I just always found this insanely hilarious. But some people might find it annoying. They might find it, I don't know. They may have think that Bob Clark shouldn't have put this in to what is more than likely a serious movie, but I don't think it hurts the movie in any way. And I heard that Doug McGrath did not know what fellatio was. He really didn't know what it was, and he wanted to keep it that way because he said it would make the scene more authentic. I could see that, Russell. You say too much like a soap opera, not enough wrestling. I think I actually said that to Steve when he was watching watching some wrestling one time, or maybe it was kind of recently. Sorry, folks. So now Peter is having one of his bitchy moments too here. I'd be like, dude, you're tearing the Christmas tree up. The heck? Did anybody like Christmas trees like that? Where like I remember back in the day when I was a kid and we would use those icicles, those fake icicles, and mom would go around saying, now put them evenly on there, and you would always end up throwing a big clump of them in one section or whatever. But did anybody truly like the trees from that era and how they were decorated? I mean, I guess for the time period they were okay, but now I look back at them in retrospect, ones like that, and they look kind of gaudy to me. Not putting down anybody that likes trees like that. And I believe the guy who's the telephone guy, Graham, here, I believe he's the guy that sells the Christmas trees on A Christmas Story. Now, y'all can tell me I'm wrong on that, but I believe it's the same guy. Or if anybody ever called that number. And can anybody tell there? Maybe I'm way off. There is a picture of Art Handel's character of Chris on a bedside table. But it looks like Chris on that poster there on the wall, but it may not be. It may be a celebrity or something like a different, not Art Handel, because Art Handel's supposed to be a regular guy in this.
The dance cops, his real name is Doug McGrath. I think he went by Douglas McGrath on here, Russell. Uncle Bill, you said which one you got? Dang, a Black Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Better Watch Out? Um, which one do I have? Well, I have all those. Better Watch Out. I have under Christmas Evil. But if you're talking about which one I like the best, Black Christmas out of those three. So I had said this before when talking about Black Christmas. I think that this film is a lot more effective with a manual phone system, no cell phones. Um, and some people might say, well, you put somebody out in the middle of nowhere with a cell phone where there's not good cell phone service, and that could be creepy too. Yeah. But I just think that the idea that somebody, yeah, they could have a cell phone nowadays and be up in the attic and be calling either a landline phone or somebody else's cell phone. And it would work basically the same way. But where the tension comes in at is the manual phone system that is used. We don't have that same kind of phone system. And I'm sure Canada doesn't have the same kind of phone system now. And the tension of them trying to trace this call. And I don't know if that's actually how it was, but when you see Graham running around trying to find the right phone connection where this caller that they're trying to find is, and you've got a bunch of different phone calls going on at one time, so he's picking one up and listening, and if that's not it, he's going and picking up another one. It's very hard.
So we have this scene here where Billy has made his way into Barb's room, and all of a sudden we hear a gasp, a scream from Barb. And, I don't know if Billy is hiding somewhere in the room. He could be in a closet or anything. Chances are, I don't think that he left the room. He just hid himself. So Barb is saying that she had a nightmare, and it caused her asthma to act up, and she needed her inhaler, and so the kids are out caroling. Does anybody get to see Christmas carolers? Do they do that anymore? Do they? I don't see it in Louisville at all. I've never seen it in Louisville since I've lived here. And of course, when I lived with my parents, they lived out in the country, and I think this is probably a town thing that would happen. But I just wondered if anybody ever came into contact with Christmas carolers nowadays. So I guess Billy did leave. I guess I'd forgotten about this part here because it appears that he's making his way back to Barb's room. I always assumed that Agnes was Billy's sister, Russell, and the remake from 2016, or I mean not 2016, 2006, expanded on that storyline. But that was what I always got from it, that Agnes was Billy's sister. So Billy is back in Barb's room. Jess is obviously distracted by the Christmas carolers. So we're seeing Barb's death here interspersed with the kids singing Christmas carols. And I think this is great. To me, this is kind of equivalent, for me anyway, to a lot of the split screen stuff that Brian De Palma did and some of the stuff that Hitchcock would do. Oh, did you find Black Chris's ending explained video on YouTube? I think I saw that too, Russell. But I'll be totally honest with you, if you haven't watched all of it yet, it doesn't really totally explain it. If it's the same one that I watched, I think everybody would probably be better off making their own interpretations of what the ending of this means. Because Bob Clark never was, and I think he was smart to do that, to not fully explain anything. Even in interviews, he wouldn't fully explain. Well, gang, oh, my head's getting hot. I did manage to wear the Santa hat during most of this, didn't I? Santa Jaws. I don't think I've seen that one, but it's a bad, funny film, Russell. So here's another kind of comedic scene in the movie that people probably feel like is unnecessary, and Bob Clark didn't really need to include it. We're seeing the cop's ass there. This old man has shot his ass full of birdshot, as Doug McGrath says. But I think that this kind of alleviates some of the more unnerving parts of the film, and I think it actually helps the film. The shark wears a Santa hat. Uh, I thought that was an odd turn of phrase that just says that Peter's so gentle most of the time. But this whole movie, he seems to have a very violent streak. So that does seem kind of out of place. So now Peter is calling and he's very, very upset. He's wanting just to help him. Gang, I'm going to go. I've been kind of flirting around with a cold here. So I hate to take myself out of the streams an hour and 10 minutes into this, but I'm going to go get me some headache medicine really quick and I'll be right back. Okay. I am back once again. Hopefully, I won't have to leave again before the end of this movie. And I believe one of the guys here, the older of the two guys here, I think one of them was in the Canadian horror film Funeral Home. So if you watch a lot of Canadian films in general, you will notice a lot of the same actors and actresses end up in some of the same films. Sometimes by the same director, sometimes by different ones. I believe the taller guy there, I think he may have been the delivery guy, one of the delivery guys that delivered the leg lamp on A Christmas Story. And y'all feel free to tell me I'm wrong on any of these, because I could be. So this is a creepy little scene. Phil goes to check on Barb. The door slowly closes. And we're pretty sure that's the end of Phil there. Apologies to you guys and gals if I seem a little more out of it during this part of it. These headaches come on me all of a sudden since I've been, feeling bad on and off. I'm hoping it's not flu. I'm hoping it's just, cold, sinus infection, something like that. Neither one of them's good, but I would rather have those than the flu. So if you guys and gals notice that every time Billy kills somebody, he makes a phone call. So he's just killed Phil, we are to assume, and so he makes another call. So we see Graham there very quickly trying to find out, which call is the call that this person is making to the sorority girls. And it's nerve-wracking because we wonder, is he going to be able to find the right terminal? Russell, you say I can watch foreign films without English subs, but they do have subs in different language on my telly. I go to settings to captions, scroll down to auto translate, and press English. I'm good to go. That's right. I notice though sometimes with YouTube, sometimes those subtitles are crazy. But on your television, I'm sure it's different though. So they got a trace on the call, and the calls are coming from 6 Belmont Street. Lieutenant Fuller at first thinks, "Oh, Nash, you stupid ass, you got it wrong." He says that's where the calls are coming into, and Nash says that's where the calls are coming from too, sir. And they had a cop posted outside the sorority house. But guess what? Jennings has had his throat slit, we are to assume, by Billy. So he's of absolutely no use. So Fuller is going to tell Nash, you need to call that girl. We're on our way. But don't tell her the guy's in the house, but tell her to just walk straight out of the house and out the front door, and they'll be there in 5 minutes. Now, as many horror films as we all have seen, we know that that's not going to work. So she's starting to go upstairs now to find Phil, and the phone rings. Russell, you say you had to watch Santa Jaws that way on YouTube? So Nash is calling her. And, Nash is trying to be calm. He says, "Are you the only one that's in the house?" And she said, "No, Phil and Barbara upstairs asleep." Why? You know, so he's trying to get her to get out of the house without going upstairs or anything. Just leave the house. But naturally, Jess is suspicious. And he's begging her, "Please just do what I tell you to." And she says, "Okay, I'll get Phil and Barb." But he panics then. And that's when he tells her what he shouldn't have told her, because Lieutenant Fuller told him, "Don't tell her the calls are coming from inside the house." Yeah, that's where Nash makes his mistake, Russell. That's right. So, if I could find any place where the character of Jess, Olivia Hussey's character, is annoying, it's right here where she's screaming at the top of her lungs. It's like, what is your reasoning for doing this? This is probably the most annoying I find her in the movie. And it's probably a good thing I don't have the sound on, because with my head hurting the way it is, I don't want to hear her screeching like that. The fellatio scene, I would have to say, yeah, it's probably the funniest thing in this movie. And this is not a movie that's known for its comedy, generally. The final quarter of this film is, I love this film overall, but this final quarter is my favorite part of the film. Oh, so she's found Phil and Barb. This scene here, when she hears a voice talking and she looks, and just sees one eye, and it says, "Agnes, it's me, Billy. Don't you tell what we did, Agnes." I mean, that is so frightening to me. And then he becomes enraged because she closes the door on him, probably hurts his hand in the process. We see her start to go out the door, and I'm guessing it's locked. And then that hand comes out and grabs her by the hair and pulls her back. And I think the first time I saw this, I thought, she's dead, you know. And then you have this very harrowing scene where she's locked herself in the basement, and he's putting all his weight against that door and screaming. And you're wondering, oh my gosh, is he going to get in there? Is he going to get her? If he gets in there, he's going to kill her. So she hears him go outside. And here's another thing. They said that Keir DeLay didn't do any of the voices, but I don't recall if they said that he ever did any. They said that was not his eye there, but that looked like the same outfit he had. The arm, when the arm outstretched was outstretched and grabbed her hair, that looked just like Peter's arm. It looked like the sweater he had on and everything. So I don't know. I don't know if that was his arm and hand as a, you know, a way to make us think, well, maybe Peter is the killer. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's taken a lot longer than 5 minutes for these damn cops to get there. So she assumes it's Billy out there. Because she heard the front door of the sorority house open, and somebody went outside. Now somebody's out there. And we're going to find out that it's Peter out there. So I think at this point we're supposed to think that Peter and Billy are one and the same person. Because otherwise, why wouldn't Billy kill Peter? Unless he's wanting Peter to take the fall for him. I've seen Jeepers Creepers wrestle. I don't care for Justin Long. I can't stand his acting. So I don't like to watch him in too many things. But I guess I never paid any attention to the eyes at the end. But that's cool to know. I've been more and more convinced that the reason why Billy did not kill Peter is so that Peter would take the fall for all the killings. And meanwhile, Billy could, quietly go back up to the attic, which we're going to discover he is there towards the end of the film. But Jess is convinced that Peter is the killer. I mean, she thought he might be, and then she was convinced he wasn't, but now she's put in a position where she's pretty daggone sure he is. So the cops get here, they find Jennings dead, and they hear a blood-curdling scream coming from the sorority house. More than one blood-curdling scream, actually. So it's now assumed that Peter must have tried to attack Jess. She protected herself and killed Peter. So they have come to the conclusion that Peter has been the killer all along. Thank you, Russell. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in here and hanging out with me tonight, too. That's right, Russell. Yeah, we've seen enough of these types of films, right? So, Mr. Harrison is suffering from shock here. This is Claire's father. And so they got to get him to the hospital. So it's been said that they don't, a lot of people don't understand why the cops will leave this girl alone in the house with just a cop outside. And they didn't check the rest of the house or anything, which does seem kind of strange, but I think that it's probably because the cops figured everything was cut and dried. Peter was the killer. Jess took Peter out, and there's nothing else there's nothing else to see here. But we, as viewers of the film, will soon realize we may even be starting to hear the mumbling from up in the attic. If not, we're going to hear it soon. Um, and we're going to find out that, oh, Peter wasn't Billy. Billy's still up in the attic. He's up there with Claire and Mrs. McHenry, or Mrs. Mike, and Claude. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic ending. So we hear the floor creaking, and you may have to listen very, very, just focus in on what's being said. Um, we're going to hear some singing, about kind of like a nursery rhyme. I think it's like Bye Baby Bunting. We hear humming. And then hear Agnes, it's me, Billy. And you see Claire in the foreground and Mrs. Mack in the background. Yeah, the smell in the attic. Yeah, especially when it started to warm up. And we're gonna, if we haven't already, we're gonna hear the phone ringing here shortly. And what did Billy do after he killed somebody? He made a phone call. So, are we to think that he's killed Jess and he's making a phone call? So there's the phone ringing. And I'm sure the cops out there to make sure that nobody comes into the sorority house. But Billy, we know, is already in the house. So we have officially reached the end. The credits are rolling to 1974's Black Christmas. I hope you guys and gals have enjoyed navigating through this film with me tonight. If this was your first time watch, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope I didn't ruin it too much for you. If you've seen it and just wanted to hang out, you're going to watch the remake, Russell? Cool. Um, if this is a movie that you have seen before or many, many times before, I hope you have enjoyed watching along with me tonight. And I hope you'll be able to join me tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Don't Open Till Christmas. Um, and I'm going to let the credits roll on out of here. And, gang, I would, if I generally, if I have somebody on here on the stream with me, I usually stay on a little bit longer. Filmed in Toronto. Yes, sir, Russell. And, but tonight, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a night. But I want to thank everybody that was in here, whether you were in here for a little while or you were in here for the duration of the film. I want to thank all of you guys and gals for being in here tonight. And I guess that is it from me for the night. I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. And an extra little holiday message for everybody and a reminder. If you've been having some issues with family or friends or disagreements this past year, now is the time to extend that olive branch, extend forgiveness, extend a kind word, because none of us are promised a tomorrow. Just wanted to remind you guys of and gals of all. I can't talk. All of that, and I'm out of here for the night. But I'll see everybody next time. Merry Christmas, folks.